been decimated. This is our Scotch Bonnet remix project. We saved the seed from Scotch Bonnets, like a habanero type, like hot pepper. We've been saving it for a few years, and last year when we grew out some Scotch Bonnets from seed that we saved, we noticed that 2 had been cross-pollinated by something else. And this is interesting for a couple reasons. One is Scotch Bonnets are a different species than most other peppers, or the Capsicum chinense pepper, as opposed to being an annuum, like the sweet peppers. And so they probably crossed between species, so that's interesting in one regards. And we tend to save seed from anything that's interesting. And so there was 2 that had crossed up. So when I grew up the Scotch Bonnet, there was a population of Scotch Bonnet, and there were 2 plants that were different than the rest. And they looked a little bit like this. One was red, and one was yellow. They didn't look like anything else that we were growing, so I knew it wasn't dirty seed. Because sometimes when you see different stuff, it's just that you've accidentally mixed something up. And so last year what we had was an F1 cross. It was a cross between 2 varieties, which were actually 2 different species. And then this year, we've grown out 100 plants from those. This is the F2 generation. And there's a lot of diversity in here. So there's some yellows, there's some reds, but then there's some like this, looks like a big monster Scotch Bonnet. And then there's some that look more like an Italian sweet pepper. And so right now we're trying to figure out what we want to keep. So there's a lot of diversity in here. And the diversity is actually, this morning, we pulled each plant out and looked at them. And the ones that you see in the middle are the ones we're still evaluating. We've made these piles on the edge of stuff that we don't like. And the big thing we don't like about them is if I look at this, like there's no ripe fruit on this.
Right.
So like I don't like that. It's not good in a pepper. And so we've tossed that. The first criteria has been, is there ripe fruit and how much of it? So the ones that have a lot of fruit, we're keeping those. The others we've tossed. Now, so some of them, there's not a lot, you don't see any yellows in here right now. There's some on the edges. One of the things we've noticed is that some of them aren't hot because it was a hot pepper that crossed with a sweet pepper. And so now we're at a phase where we're actually tasting each pepper plant one by one. So the whole plant is either hot or not. And on the hotness, it could be on like from a little bit of hot to pretty hot. And so we're tasting each pepper one by one to see which ones are hot and which ones aren't. And I don't know what percentage has fallen out so far, but the ones that are over here on the row cover, those are the ones that aren't hot. And the ones that are hot, we've actually pulled back to the greenhouse of the yellows. And next is going to look for the reds. And
then in the end, do you know what you really want from this?
No.
Or are you going for flavor and going for production?
I don't know what I'm, this is, I don't know where I'm going, and so if you come here, I'll show you what that, so when you have a breeding project, you either know what you're doing or you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
And so sometimes we have something specific that we're trying to work towards, but other times we have something interesting that happens, and we decide to see where it goes. And so at first I thought that I would try to get a new hot pepper out of this. I don't think anything's going to be as hot as a Scotch Bonnet in the first generations. Maybe in a few generations later it might get that hot again, but I think it's probably be more like between a cayenne level. But these sweet ones I wasn't expecting to have, I wasn't thinking about them. And so the reason I knew there was some sweet right from the beginning is there was this pepper that some mouse or vermin of some sort has been nibbling on. And so I knew it likely wasn't hot. Now sometimes some varmints will get used to the heat and they'll actually go up for it, but I don't think that was the case. And so this one, I tasted it and it was amazing. So this was sweet, but it was delicious. And so this is a new breeding project right here, where I'm going to grow out like 50 plants next year to see, double check that they're all mild, and then to also see if more diversity comes out of it. And I'll taste each of them to see which is the best one. And we're gonna select for these small little sweet peppers. It's almost like a lunchbox pepper, but it has some of the Scotch Bonnet genes. And the thing with Scotch Bonnets and habaneros is when we eat them, you really taste the heat, but they have a whole flavor profile that's masked by the heat. So once the heat is gone, we're talking sweetness that's different than a sweet pepper. So I'm really excited about this project, and this wasn't the intention. This is totally an accident. And so this is a happy accident. It's possible this is the ultimate outcome that comes out of this project, but right now it's just one line. And so what we've done, just to reiterate, we started off by selecting for ripeness and yield. And what's left is the ripened yield. Now we're segregating out the sweet ones from the hot ones, and that'll be 2 different lines. And then once we know that, we're going to look at what's interesting to look at. Because, like, so if you look here, you can see there's a lot of different stuff going on. And we'll have to look at, like, so if there's really amazing flavors, we'll go for that too. But short of that, we're going to start looking then at what's actually aesthetically pleasing, what's interesting, what is there not on the market at all. And then we'll start a couple lines for that. We only have space for so many plants next year. So I'll try to narrow this down to between 5 and 10 plants that we really like. And then each of those plants will grow 20 to 100 plants, depending how much we like it, next year. And we'll be at a new place. And we'll try to get different things, so we have 5 different lines or 10 different lines, depending what we like.
That is so, that's so interesting, and also the color.
Yeah.
It looks like you grew, every plant is totally different.
Yes.
And the color on this one over here is different from all your other, well, from most of your other yellows.
Yes, it's like a lemony yellow.
Yeah.
Rather than a carrot
like a
yellow,
habanero orange yellow. Yeah.
Orange yellow.
That is neat. And then when you were, so you were, the whole season, you were taking out plants that you weren't performing?
No, we just let them go.
Okay.
We just let them go. Some projects that we're doing breeding, we look at them all the time and keep selecting the stuff that's best. And other projects, we just ignore them. I'll peek now and then to see what was happening. I was looking to see if stuff was ripening. I was looking to see what they looked like, but I didn't really care until today. Like, because up until now, I hadn't really seen the diversity. I hadn't seen anything really amazing. It was just a bunch of different peppers. But now that I'm getting to know each one of them, I'm starting to care more. And we can do a lot of selection at this point without having evaluated 3 or 4 times during the season.
Yeah.
The more breeding projects you have, the less time you want to spend with each one to get good results. Because you're like, if I spend hours and hours with this one, I'm compromising on other breeding projects or basically running the farm, which is what pays the bills. And